Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lael Giebel. I'm a WCS board member and the events committee co-chair. Welcome to our highly anticipated virtual event, Building a Culture of Innovation. Get ready for an electrifying conversation with our amazing panelists. As we kick off today's session, we will warmly welcome participants old and new. At Women in Cleantech and Sustainability, we believe in the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion to drive innovation and create a thriving green economy. Join us for a special event centered around recruitment and retention, where we will explore strategies to build diverse and inclusive teams in the sustainability sector. We'll discuss best practices, share success stories, and network with industry leaders committed to fostering a culture of belonging. We will explore cutting-edge recruitment and retention strategies that will shape a sustainable future for all. Now, let's check the agenda. We will start with some quick housekeeping items, then move on to the discussion with our panelists, and we will have some time dedicated for a Q&A from the audience. Don't hesitate to drop your questions in the chat. So, who are we? WCS is a nonprofit originally founded in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are now in 13 countries and have a membership base of more than 500 professional women and men. The goal of the organization is to support women in their careers in the clean tech industry. WCS is celebrating its 13th year anniversary, which is pretty impressive considering we're a nonprofit primarily run by volunteers. What we do at WCS: we hold monthly events such as panels like the one you're on right now and in-person social events. We're now a global organization, so do keep an eye out for an event near you. We also hold professional development workshops, or PDWs. You can check out the events page for more information on those upcoming PDWs. Before we start the conversation, here are some tips to have a respectful and engaging conversation. We're going to start with some Zoom etiquette, and I imagine you're all pretty familiar with this after 3 years of virtual meetings, but just a few reminders. Please write your full name and turn on your video if you feel comfortable doing so. We do love to see all your faces. WCS volunteers, please add an asterisk next to your name. Out of respect for our speakers, please mute yourself during the call. We encourage you to add your LinkedIn to the chat and connect with other attendees. The more you get involved and active during this event, the more you benefit from it. We couldn't host this event without the help from our sponsor, TerraSmart. So let's welcome Ashley, Director of Brand and Communications at TerraSmart. Ashley, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm hoping that you all can hear me okay.
Yep.
I'm Ashley Kent, Director of Brand and Comms for TerraSmart. And for the past 7 years, I've served as the Director of Marketing and working with the team to help shape and guide our brand and creative messaging, as well as lead the PR and external comms efforts for the business. I'm based in Fort Myers, Florida. It's one of our main business locations, and we also have 2 other business unit locations, one in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the other in Grand Rapids, Michigan. TerraSmart's a proud sponsor of Women in Clean Tech, and for those of you who may not be familiar with who we are, as you can see here on the slide, our mission is to power our people, our partners, and the world forward in delivering smart solutions for renewable energy. So what does this mean? As a company, we've been in the solar industry now for coming up on our 15th year. We are one of the leading solar racking providers in the commercial and utility space. We pride ourselves on being able to provide the full solar lifecycle solution that is customized for each client's unique project and solar site. And you can go to the next slide. So this explains a little bit more about our operations and who we are and the flow. We do have a large team of engineers that can custom design an array of products, anywhere from ground mount that include our fixed tilt and tracker products, canopy and carport, electrical balance of systems, which is our EBOS solutions, and our project optimization software SIFT, which stands for Solar Instant Feasibility Tool, which our SIFT tool is used early on in the development stage to identify the best design and right products to use that will maximize the production for each unique solar site. And in addition, we own 3 manufacturing facilities in the US, and of which we design and fabricate all of our products. And we have a large field install team as well that they focus on installing our ground mount solutions. along with a proprietary fleet of equipment. And on our last slide, you can see some stats of what what we've been able to do as a company and accomplish over the past 15 years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ashley. So now let's welcome today's moderator, Shelley Connolly. Shelley has 10 years of experience in the human resources industry, currently working as a director of global diversity, equity, and inclusion for KnowBe4. Her expertise has developed into DEI, coaching, organizational design, training, and employee engagement. She's on the board of directors for the Florida National Diversity Council. She is also the director of diversity on the board of directors of the Tampa Society of Human Resources chapter that focuses on creating initiatives to foster diversity and inclusion within the chapter. Shelley is certified in HR and diversity, currently holding the, forgive me, I'm going to try to get all these letters right, holding the SPHR, SHRM, SCP, CDP, and CDE. That's a mouthful. She's also an alum of St. Leo University with a master's in business administration. And what her bio doesn't mention, but I happen to know, is that she was also listed in the top 40 under 40 in the Tampa Bay Business Journal. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Shelley.
Oh, thank you, Leo, for hyping me up at the end. I shouldn't have done you like that. I should have left out the alphabet soup part and maybe left my favorite sir or something. But I thank you so much for the warm introduction. Super happy to be here, especially in the sustainability space. I'm going to bring on our next three speakers to the stage, who I'm happy to present. Unfortunately, Annette could not be here with us today. She had an unexpected family emergency that she had to attend to. But shout out to Joanna, who just stepped right on up in such a short moment's notice. So we appreciate you coming through. So it is my pleasure to introduce Joanna Rogers. So with 15 years of experience in B2B marketing, Joanna has a diverse background working for companies in the healthcare, commercial real estate, and renewable energy sectors. Currently, she's the vice president of marketing at TerraSmart, where she is responsible for marketing and product strategies that drive customer satisfaction, revenue growth, and advance TerraSmart's mission of powering people, partners, and the world forward. As the marketing co-chair for WCS, she is thrilled to be able to tell the stories that promote WCS' position as a thought leader and compelling organization for women to gain the tools to build their careers in clean tech and sustainability. Joanna graduated from the University of Illinois with a bachelor's degree in international economics. Please give a warm welcome, virtual welcome to Joanna. And for that bachelor's in international economics, oh my gosh.
Marketers can do math. Fun fact.
Like, okay, oh my, economics was not for me. So happy to have you, Joanna. Thank you so much for stepping up on the last minute as well, too. Then also, I'm going to bring to the virtual stage Miss Melinda Brianna Epler. She has over 25 years of experience driving sustainability and inclusion strategies for startups, which that's not for the faint heart. Me and Leo started in a startup. It is not easy. For Fortune 500 companies and global NGOs. As CEO of Impovia, I'm sorry, Melinda, if I pronounced that wrong. Melinda works with leaders to drive inclusive and sustainable change through strategy, storytelling, and learning programs. Her popular TED Talk, 3 Ways to Be a Better Ally in the Workplace, reached 1 million views in the first 24 days of its release. I need to give poetry snaps for that. And she also is the host of a popular podcast series, Leading with Empathy and Allyship. And she is also the author of How to Be an Ally through McGraw-Hill. And you can check out that link actually for her book, should be dropped in the chat, so you could check it out there. So warm welcome to Melinda to the stage as well, too. And then for third and final speaker to bring to the stage, I have Miss Eden Higgins. She has more than a decade of experience in human resources, leading startups as well. Ooh, we could start a support group, and large corporations in recruiting, compensation, benefits, employee relations, and strategic planning. With hands-on experience in diverse industries, she has a holistic perspective to executive search and recruitment. Eden is passionate about renewable energy, recruitment, and emerging technologies, and fosters relationships with top-tier talent. She holds a bachelor's degree in communications from Arizona State University, and when not working, she coaches cross-country and track at Xavier College Preparatory, Phoenix. As vice president and practice leader of Duffy Group, Eden goes the extra mile for clients. So warm welcome to Miss Eden and all of the fantastic speakers. So I don't know if y'all can tell by all the bios that I just read off. We have decades of experience in the room. So this is definitely going to be an exciting chat, especially discussing the topics around recruiting and DEI. I want to set the stage because I'm not sure where everyone is sitting, but I currently sit in Florida. And so for me and also Leo, who also sits in Florida, there always is a lot of misconception around DEI and the different definitions and kind of some of the things that we are talking about or referring to. So before we get into a deep dive of DEI as it relates to recruiting, retention, and things of that nature, we kind of want to define those words for everybody. So that way we're just on the same page as a group. So Melinda, I'm going to ask you, so how do you define diversity, equity, inclusion within the context of recruitment, retention, sustainability, or just in general?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all.
Hey.
Okay, so there's a lot of words in there. I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. So diversity is about representation. Do you have representation of your community? So if you sit in Florida looking around you in your community, is your company representing that community within the employees? So are you valuing your unique ideas? Because that's where innovation really thrives, when you have diverse perspectives, diverse ideas, and people feel safe to actually share those. So you're looking for, instead of looking for a culture fit in recruiting, you want to look for a culture add. Who is going to add more to your culture? You're looking for candidates where they are, which is not necessarily by just putting it on your website and hoping they'll come, right? You have to find them where they are. And in retention, it's where you have a diverse team, you might have different needs across your team as a result. So you have to really think about that. Okay, so diversity is representation. Equity is about recognizing the historical unfairness in our society and also in our cultural systems and processes within our workplaces. So we're working to change those with equity work. So there might be, for example, in recruiting, there might be inequities in education. In our education systems, there's a lot of inequities. So you might need to widen your search to get more diverse candidates, right? If candidates weren't able to get into the schools you're looking for, right, that's perpetuating this lack of diversity. So, and some things to think about there, do you really need that master's degree for that role? Or can you list the skills that somebody needs, right? That's an example of just flipping that a bit. Inequities in the tech industry are pretty prevalent. So as we're in clean tech and climate tech, really thinking about not perpetuating those. Do you really need 10 years of experience in climate work, or can some experiences be translatable from other industries? Or do you have some compensation inequities, pay inequities, equity inequities, right? When we're talking about startups, and what about promotion? Often there are some inequities in when and how people are promoted. Okay, so equity is more about the systems and recognizing that those systems are inequitable and working to change that, creating more fairness and justice. Inclusion is culture and processes that really builds an environment where people feel safe, welcome. First, they're welcome to walk in the door. They feel safe, they feel engaged, they feel committed to be there, and their company is committed to them, and like they belong. So this should really be embedded in your culture and the values and reinforced. So it has to come from the top with your leadership team, and it usually requires some training, because people don't know what they don't know, right? And there's a research that shows that 70% of white people only have white friends, right? So might not know how to interact with other people, and so some of this work is learning and unlearning and relearning. And so how is this different in sustainability specifically? Well, how can you be sustainable if you're not equitable? Honestly, if you're not bringing everybody along with you, right? These are really inextricably tied. So really thinking about climate jobs and what skills you need in those climate jobs, and kind of reframing your job descriptions all the way through the entire interview process, and then retention strategies as well. And we'll go more into the details here, but one thing I am seeing is that climate tech is replicating tech in terms of all of the inequities in the systems and processes. And so really thinking about how you're going to do that differently is really important.
So that's interesting, and thank you. I know that was a heavy lift. That was like 8 definitions. Had to define. So I appreciate you coming through and setting the stage like that as well too. And I think it's so easy for us to get so caught up in the words as well too, especially since like the pendulum swing with DEI being put in the forefront, because it's like what you said, you even added the word belonging, like that's been added to like the list of words as well too, or even like Jedi, like adding justice to it as well. And so I think it's really easy for people who are not familiar with this space to get overwhelmed with seeing the different words and stuff like that. But I wanted to point out, because I really love that you mentioned the culture add versus fit, because as someone in human resources, like I feel like just growing up in it, that's all you heard was culture fit, culture fit. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you really ask yourself, what are you saying? What is that actually coded for when you're saying culture fit? Are you saying someone like me, someone like someone on my team? And is that really adding value? And I think that really brings us into our next question for Eden. I wanted to ask, how can organizations enhance their recruitment and hiring practices to attract and retain a more diverse workforce?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Shelley. And that, Melinda, that was fantastic, by the way, that introduction. Thank you so much for all that. It was great. Yes. I was taking notes myself. I'm like, this is great. So as far as, helping with recruiting and helping to get the best people and help our DEI initiatives and hiring people that are, there's a lot of things that we can do as a company. And I think that one of our speakers, Joanna, is going to mention about marketing, but we're going to, as far as from me, we're a recruiting agency. So we do a lot with our clients and help them understand what the market looks like. And we help increase their vision of what will be a fit and who will belong and what the market's like. And we educate and help as even internal recruiters or external recruiters or hiring leaders to just have a wide open lens of what will work in your company. And I think that's changing constantly. And everything that we can do, I mean, it's the job descriptions are, you can put that through ChatGPT and then it will change it to be unbiased, right? I mean, there's things that you can do that will actually make things better for people when they read them. But then listening to the people that are actually applying and interviewing, what do they want? One thing that we had, I wanted to mention this, and it doesn't fit in any of the questions.
But we got to do it though. We got to do it now.
We had a candidate that mentioned something about DEI, and she added a B to it. And she said belonging. And that's exactly what Melinda said about the adding. I want to add what I am to your company. And this is what I am, and help me to be included is what candidates are saying. So I know that's very quick. It's not as long as Melinda had mentioned, but that's how I would answer that question.
No, I love that. I didn't get poetry stabs at the end, because that's definitely, I feel like, especially with some of the newer generation coming into the workplace as to what they're asking for. And I mean, you mentioned such a great point about adapting with the change. And that's a lot of what DEI is about, because DEI is about the human experience. It's about people, and there's going to be changes with that. And also, because it's about people and the human experience, it's connected to what's happening outside, which means there will always be changes and things that we have to adapt as it relates to DEI, which is what makes it so fun sometimes. But Joanna, I want to pass it to you. I want to ask the same question. How can organizations enhance their recruitment and hiring practices to attract and retain a more diverse workforce?
Sure. I've been furiously taking notes myself already, so I hope I can add as much as Melinda and Eden have already. A couple of things I want to say. I think first and foremost, DEIB needs to be a part of the fabric of your organization and not just an accessory that's bolted on. And that applies to many things, kind of just even beyond recruitment and hiring. That's how you operate day to day. And I think I'm going to mention that a few times in my answers, but I fundamentally believe that's like critical, and it needs to be embedded in the values of your business, which Melinda mentioned. And it is one of ours at TerraSmart, and it's our parent company, is it's make it together. And we recognize that every month in our all hands. We really try and make sure that's a regular beating drum that our employees engage with. And I think then that bleeds through to how we execute things like recruitment and hiring. Just one thing on the practices that we apply in recruitment is working with a diverse set of partners to reach a diverse set of candidates. It really sounds so simple when I say that, but I know, Annette and Casey and our HR team do things like work with our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in the cities that we operate to reach those populations. We're a partner with WCS, who has a great job board and events that create awareness for your company and allow us to build connections with all of the wonderful people on calls like this that could turn into future candidates or future employees. So we really try and make sure we're, going where those candidates are instead of relying on the same practices for us to find them. And then, you mentioned the marketing aspect of it. Storytelling about people drives the highest engagement in any marketing thing. Think about what you respond to just as a, human being engaging on social channels. So we really, and Ashley, who you heard from earlier, leads the charge on this, try and represent our workforce to just show people what we have instead of trying to sell it. And if you see it, you can believe it. So if there are candidates out there wondering about TerraSmart and they look and say, hey, I see people of all stripes in here, maybe this is a place where I will feel welcome and included and belong. And that's something that we really, keep at the forefront, both in HR and marketing and other members of our team.
Oh, so much said there that I feel like I need to unpack. You're preaching to me about how DEI needs to be the fundamentals of anything that you do if you're going to try to do it, because one of the key things as it relates to DEI is it's a strategic function of the organization. And when you try to do it in like separate pieces and things like that, it can fall really apart really easily. Or, if you just stick with like trying to figure out like the cultural holidays or things like that and not try to implement it into every aspect of the business, like recruiting, marketing, whatever it may be, that's where it's going to start broaching like a little bit of the performative side. So it's such an important call out as well too. And so I'm hearing listening to candidates, expanding your pool, getting representation. And I kind of want to switch to some of the tactical aspects of recruiting. So, Eden, I'm going to jump back to you real quick. How do you address the unconscious bias in the recruitment process to ensure fair and equitable opportunities for all candidates?
Sure. So, the stories that I can tell, because I've been recruiting since 1980s. So the stories I could tell, but
you're like, let me pull out a scroll.
Oh my gosh. Specifically, I think it's when we're dealing with a hiring leader, and all of us either are hiring leaders or we work with hiring leaders and we service those hiring leaders. Call them on the carpet if something doesn't look right or smell right with what they're doing. The questions that they want to ask, the things that they're, I've had clients that will remain confidential at this time that have asked me to find people that have an Ivy League degree. And that automatically cuts out a ton of people, right? So I push back. Why? What does that mean? Does that make that person better? Are you sure about that? It really hits the pool, so I think pushing back to the person that's trying to make that rule for that position and saying, well, have you thought about it this way? And not in a aggressive, mean tone, but in a, hey, let's include more. The labor pool, and I mentioned this in our meeting last week, that the labor pool is very small.
I was shocked. Remember when you said that? I almost passed out on the Zoom call. I was like, what?
Me too. Me too.
Not just in Cleantech, everywhere. It's in March, it's 3.8% unemployment right now. Okay. So that means that if every person that were unemployed filled every position that is open, there would still be 60% of the positions open. So that's according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, right? So I'm counting on those numbers as being correct. So that's crazy. So our hiring leaders, and how do we need to include everyone to make this work, to fill the positions. So how do we push back and make sure that everybody's included is, hey, this is what the market looks like. Let's open this. Now, do you really need that degree? And that's what Melinda had mentioned. Do you need that degree? This person has 20 years of experience. They didn't have the money to go get a degree, you know, and let's tell that story when we're pushing back to that hiring leader. Or even it may be a program that is being not just in recruiting, but just overall on the retention side. What if it's a program that is something that is only going to be great for only women, or only going to be great for men, or a certain portion of your population? You know, why don't we try to include everyone in what we're doing and get everybody's point of view? So I feel like just trying to, you know, specifically with those job descriptions, look at them with a different lens and open it up to others. When you say, does that really need to happen? Does that person really need to have 25 years of experience? How about this instead? And we do that actually, because we have to, you know, we have to. I mean, this is a great time to be open, because it is a must. You have to do it as an employer these days.
No, and I love that. It's like asking those just outside the box questions, like, do you need this degree? Or with the job descriptions, do you need this many bullet points? I can't tell you how many times I've opened a job description and there's 25 bullet points. And it's like, who are you asking? Are you asking an Avenger to complete this job? Like, why are there 80 bullet points on this? And like, there's actually statistics out there that show that with women, when there is more bullet points, that women feel the need to qualify for all, like basically like 90% of the bullet points, while men only need like 4 to be like, let me just go ahead and shoot my resume out there and see what happens. And so even subtle things like that can increase like your candidate pool of in general. And also, I really love that you point out of asking why. I feel like a key thing that I do is, it's called the 5 whys. And so if someone asks you a question that you don't really understand, you just continue asking why, and you will eventually get to the real reason as to why that question was asked, or the reason behind it, and then we can be able to reframe the conversation. But I want to bring it back to Joanna real quick, because I know we were talking about representation as well too being important. So Joanna, another question for you: how can organizations increase representation of diversity within leadership positions, and what impact does having a diverse leadership team have on organizational success? So I hit you with a twofer real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the second half of that and cite that. I mean, I hope everyone on this call has heard this statistic before from Forbes, that women-led tech companies have a 35% higher ROI than men-led companies. So, I mean, what more do you need to know about the impact of having a diverse leadership team on organizational success? And
they do it with less funding too.
Yeah. And I will say, I have to plug TerraSmart a little here, because I'm really proud that our leadership team is 40% women, and, you know, in renewables, in construction and manufacturing. So we're not tech, but still 2 male-dominated fields. And you can see, you know, the difference that the different perspectives that we have, you know, bring to the way our organization is run. And that's beyond marketing and HR. You know, our head of field operations, our head of our construction is a woman, and our head of finance. And I just love that. And I mentioned this earlier, and I like to that question about how can organizations increase representation within leadership positions. If you see it, you can be it, and you can believe in it. So like for us, having that, you know, diverse leadership pool, being intentional about growing the team in that way, has created, you know, a culture where diverse talent wants to stay, because they see that growth is possible and perspectives like theirs are valued. So that's like, you know, you don't want to say you just have to start it from the top and that will all fall into place, but that is one practice that we do, you know, really to make sure the people who want other voices at the table, because they are another voice themselves, are in those positions where they can change the makeup of that table. And the other anecdote I'd share, you know, I said, if you see it, you can be it, but sometimes you have to be one of the ones who's been othered to see it. So how can you make people, white men, you know, acknowledge that there's a problem? So we had our diversity, our DEIB committee does a monthly speaker series, and we had 2 women who worked for Emerson, which is a huge, you know, conglomerate organization, come and talk to us about how they really changed the culture around LGBTQ at Emerson. I was in the room with all men after, And some of my peers, and we were talking about it. And I was like, we've been in this meeting room all day. How many of you noticed I'm the only woman here? 0 of them. And I bet you all can say you've been through something like that. So we talked about that experience a little bit. And then one of my peers, a man, came to me weeks later and he was like, I'm still thinking about that comment. And now I think about it in all the meetings I'm in. And I feel like asking that one provocative question, has led to someone changing their perspective that will then help us create a more diverse workforce, because he's going to be thinking about when he's hiring. So just like it's the small things sometimes too that can really help drive an organization that's behind bringing more diversity and inclusion into your workforce.
No, absolutely. It's like a ripple effect at that point, because like that will be something that sticks with him. And typically with like when it comes to learning a new behavior or anything like that, the rule is that once they learn something, they go tell 3 other people, and that's how the ripple effect like takes place. And I mean, I think one of the key things as well too to add on is that these type of things take time when you're trying to get representation within leadership. I know for me on my end, I feel like I saw a lot of people thinking like, okay, like diversity is in the forefront. Like, why are these organizations like still in their C-suite not necessarily diverse? And the truth of the matter is the way that businesses work, you're not just going to fire somebody because of a certain demographic background that they're in for the sake of diversity, because that literally goes against like the whole entire mission of what we're trying to do. And so these things that we're talking about, like implementing diverse candidate pools and, eliminating unconscious bias, those are the things that lead up to it to create a plan over some years to create representation that we want to see in leadership. It's not just something that happens overnight. But Melinda, I need to bring you back into the mix. So same question, how can organizations increase representation of diversity within leadership? And then also, what impact does diverse leadership teams have on organization success? So 2 for you too.
Okay, cool. 2 pieces. All right. So, and I do want to just follow up Joanna's point a bit, and how to help people learn in general, especially white men who may not have experienced exclusion in the same ways, right? And what we learned in our research is that storytelling is the #1 way, whether people learn through one-on-one storytelling from somebody that they know, they trust, they respect, or they learn it on a panel at work. But it is usually through storytelling in one way or another. So we need more conversations in the workplaces where people really get a better sense of what's going on with people and what their experiences are, and a safe space to learn. That's a key piece of that. All right, so I want to share my own story about being a leader in a leadership position in marketing, and the impact that I had and the problems with it. So I was hired by a client of mine and became the chief experience officer. So I was head of marketing and also culture, and led our behavior change services within energy efficiency in healthcare. And I hired a really diverse team, most diverse team in the company, and in terms of innovation, because that's what ultimately we're talking about today, is how this all leads to innovation. We got a lot done. We got it done really well. We increased our revenue and reversed a downward spiral for the company. On the marketing team and the business development team, we shifted a lot of processes and worked really hard to change that. We had some incredible new initiatives that were really successful and impactful around energy efficiency in healthcare. And I was the only woman on a leadership team of 19 people, and it just was not a culture that was created for me, and no one made space for me in that culture. It was really toxic. I was harassed and bullied, and also just experienced those little everyday slights and insults, those microaggressions that really kind of impact how other people see you when they happen, and also how you can see yourself ultimately when it comes at you over and over again. Former White House CTO Megan Smith calls it death from 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's the little things every day that make a big difference in how you feel, how you show up, whether you're able to thrive. And so it's when we're building representation within the leadership team, it has to be more than one. because that's tokenization. When it's one person, is not likely, that person is really not likely to succeed. It really takes, full representation, right? 51% women, at least 51% women on the leadership team, right? And really looking at intersectionality as well. Women of color, women with disabilities, LGBTQIA plus women, and all of the above, right? On our leadership teams. That's really what ultimately drives to the best innovation.
Oh, I need to give a pause for a second, let that sit with the room. No, I so resonate with a lot of the things that you were saying. And I feel like with what you were talking about, it also almost like relates to like imposter syndrome. And I think that is very present when you are the only one that looks like you, or the only one, that you're familiar with and stuff like that, especially when trying to lead or manage and things like that as well too. And the type of emotional toll that takes, it really is death by 1,000 paper cuts. I was like, oh, I'm gonna remember. I saw people nodding too. So I'm like, some of us must have had death by 1,000 paper cuts, like in our workplace as well too. So switching gears real quick. So Joanna, back to you. Because as we're getting ready just to wrap it up here in a little bit, what emerging trends do you see? So talking about the future and best practices in advancing DEI and how organizations stay with the curve.
Well, as the VP of marketing, of course, I care about DEI, but I do hope some real HR professionals answer this question too. But I was doing a little research before I stepped in, and I saw that 2024 for DEI is the year of inclusion. And I think Pam maybe brought it up in the comments that, bringing in a diverse workforce is one step, making sure they feel included and accepted and belong is part two. You need them to stay. So when I think about emerging trends and best practices and how staying within that curve, I think for us, it's really been about investing in listening to our employees. We do a number of things. We have very, very open all hands. Honestly, I'm shocked what people will ask to the leadership in those forums. I think we had almost 175 questions asked over the last 12 months. If you've ever been in internal communications, that's like an insane amount. Visit our job sites. We've had roundtables with 100 production employees, bringing in translators where we need. We publish our action plans from those. Really want to make sure we are addressing the different pockets of our population. So you have diversity in function as well as, ethnicity, gender, et cetera. We want to be looking at those at all angles and tailoring our engagement opportunities to meet the needs of those different populations of people. Because if they feel heard and they feel like we're taking their needs into account, they're going to feel like this is a workplace that I feel included and that I belong and I want to stay. So that's just some of the, when I was looking at what are the trends in DEI, there's really interesting stuff on removing bias from AI, which I would love for someone else to comment on, because I think that's got to be a crazy trend or topic. But really investing in that listening has been the trend that we've been really putting our kind of firepower behind to stay within the curve. And that's one I would suggest to others in their organizations to try and drive.
No, and a lot was said there. I agree with the sense of inclusion. And I say that because of the fact that it's an election year. So you're going to see DEI get a little bit more dicey with everything that's going on outside, all the different bans and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm not sure where everyone sits, but I know I sit in Florida, which means I have to check my news every day, make sure I still have a job and whatnot as well too. But I think it's almost having to sometimes shift for those of us that are in states that are like banning and stuff like that, and focusing on the inclusion aspect and bringing everybody into the fold is going to be so important. Actually, as well too, I saw that the Society of Human Resources, they went ahead and they've almost made a claim where they're just reversing the words and starting with inclusion, equity, and diversity as well too. So I found that interesting as well. So I definitely think there is a trend of the focus on inclusion, especially as we approach the election year, where some things are going to get a little bit more dicey as well. So speaking of actually things getting dicey, Melinda, so with the current ruling from Well, I can't believe it's actually almost been a year now, because I think it was June or July of last year. But with the current ruling from 2023 around affirmative action, along with the backlash of DEI in the headlines, have you seen it affect any strategies that were in place? And if you did you have to stay the course, or did you pivot? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's fundamentally shifted. Not everywhere. I would say not in the nonprofit space, it hasn't really shifted much at all. But in tech, it has radically shifted teams, shifted strategies, and shifted budgets. So that there's a lot of people that we're frankly losing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, people that have been doing this work a long time that are out of jobs, out of work. And yeah, so it's fundamentally shifted. And I'm understanding now that a lot of people don't know that, but welcome. If you didn't know that before,
Have a seat,
unfortunately it's true. It's very radically true. And so and I don't think that it's going to be forever. It's going to change, but it's going to change. It's going to change over time, and it's going to change when more Gen Z comes into the workplace, when more diversity is just the only talent you can hire, and people will demand it. But it's going to take some time. And so in light of that, I worked in a company where they didn't want to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion at all, and I still made change. There's a lot of things that you can do. And so when, instead of thinking about inclusion, I'm seeing a lot of switch to talking about empathy, building trust, building psychological safety, building engagement, because there's so many. Psychological safety and engagement is tied to business goals and profitability. You don't have to do the work there. You can focus on those two things especially, but empathy and trust as well. And then in terms of, instead of talking about equity, we might have to talk about fairness. A lot of people have this internal barometer around fairness and really find that a powerful motivation to do something. So if you can't talk about equity, talk about fairness. If you can't talk about DEI at all, talk about building empathy and understanding for one another, and building psychologically safe spaces for people to share their ideas freely. All of these things are getting at the same things, but using different words, basically.
Incognito DEI, that's what I
Yeah, incognito, or yeah, that works.
No, you can tell I've been there. That's the space I've had to live in, because, it's so important to meet people where they are, especially for people who their only exposure has been to the backlash of what DEI is, or thinking that DEI is just something related to wokeness or whatever it may be. And so in order to meet people where they are, sometimes you do have to do incognito DEI, because there's people don't realize how far DEI expands, and they don't realize that certain things are DEI. So you just have to be strategic about how you go about it to still move the needle. So I love that you emphasize that. And
and actually, that leads me to one last quick point, which is that if you're an organization like TerraSmart that is doing the work now and really, and you're not seeing that happen, you're not seeing that detraction happen, make sure that it's embedded in your culture so that it won't go away. Because if you're just adding it on top, it's like frosting, you can be scraped off, right? But if it's embedded in the ingredients of the cake, you can't just scrape it off, right? That's where we need to get.
ooh, no, that's so important. And
that.
that's kind of what we're going to see, over, especially this year as well, too, is who had DEI as frosting and who has DEI as that's in their cake.
Exactly.
Because like I said, I think, with that change as well, too, is you're going to see organizations who were never really actually about DEI, like immediately start to pull back. Because like what you were saying, like for as long as I can remember, DEI has always been in cycles. I've been funded, defunded, refunded, defunded again, defunded. Like that's just how that goes. But for organizations like what you're saying with TerraSmart, like it won't matter what happens with the election. I mean, of course, like, there may be like some things as well, too, but if the foundation is there, what happens in the outside, you won't have to necessarily pivot. And I wanted to also emphasize for everyone in the room, for the 2023 affirmative action ruling, that ruling was just for universities. It was not for corporations, but typically when these type of things happen on a national level, there is something that's called a chilling effect, where corporations, all of a sudden, they like act in herds. They're just like, oh, does this mean it's coming? And just start acting proactively. You know,
Mhm.
do
And it's
I need
coming a
to
lot from legal teams because they don't
Yes.
want to take that risk. Yeah.
Exactly. They saw the news and they were like, "Ooh, I don't want that drama. Let me do X, Y, Z." So you start to see those things. And so that's kind of how that's correlated, even though it was just for universities, it's still going to have almost like an unspoken impact on organizations as well, too. So a lot coming. So I'm going to you know, just to wrap it up here, just to round it out, I want to ask each of you ladies, if you had one thing that you could share that you want the audience to take away today, what will it be? Ina, I will start with you. I need to come back to you.
All right. Well, thank you again. And so much great information, ladies. So great. So thank you for educating me today too. So I think the takeaway would be that, and I think I'm speaking to the choir, looking at all the faces here and the black boxes. But I feel like the takeaway would be that inclusion and helping everyone belong is going to help us all do better. You know, our organizations, personally, our companies that we work with, if we're self-employed, so to include everyone and to make sure that we are open and really open to others and how they feel and open to understanding and learning more about somebody else that's completely different than you, then we're going to be better humans, which will make our departments better and make our companies better. So, you know,
Better humans. Who doesn't love that?
mhm.
Joanna, I'll go ahead and pass it off to you.
Yeah, I was thinking ahead of this what my takeaway was going to be, and I'm actually going to say what my personal one is, which I'm stealing from Melinda. This was my number one insight was culture add versus culture fit, right? Like I think a lot about culture in the marketing and in our brand and what that feels like. And I work closely with our HR team and others about that. And I always interview, are they going to be a good fit for TerraSmart? Knowing that our culture needs to grow and expand. So I can keep that in my mind, but framing it is this an ad? Is this someone's who's going to push us to be better and bring a voice we don't have, a perspective that we don't have? I mean, that's one change I am going to make in my hiring, in my thought process coming out of this. So I hope that might be one for others. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't think about it like that, but I really find that such a compelling, actionable takeaway. So that's mine. That's going to be mine. And I hope that inspires someone else to adopt it as well. Thank you, Melinda.
Yes,
Awesome.
Melinda with the ripple effect.
I love
All right,
it.
no pressure to round it out now.
All right. So I just want to leave folks with you don't let the anti-ESG, anti-woke, anti-DEI, anti-whatever get you down too much, because we each have the power to create change within our sphere. You look into your own role. What is it? What is something that you can do in your own role to, rethink your own biases, really model the change for other people? What can you do to really create a culture of inclusion on your own team? There are ways that we can all take action, and so do that work on your own. And then really, one thing we didn't touch on at all was around climate justice and this kind of notion of taking this, especially in tech, saying we know about what other people need and how to change their behaviors, their cultures, whatever, with our products, which is kind of a colonial mindset versus a collaborative mindset where you're working with communities together. So you're hiring people from within your community, you're working on solutions together.
Love that. That was such a great way to round this out. So I got the word that I can extend it 5 minutes for some Q&A. There wasn't any that was sent to me, but I still want to open it. And actually, I see a hand up, but I apologize. Your screen is iPhone.
Hi, everyone.
Hey there.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, everyone. It's Sarah Fuentes, your chairwoman. I just wanted to say that one thing, listening to this conversation, and for those that may have, that maybe this is your first time with Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability, but our foundation is established upon diversity, and it's kind of in our name. But also with our transition and some of the things that we can see, even with me being the chairwoman and opening it up and positioning individuals so people can see as a pioneer, so to speak. But the thing that I really am excited about is to hear all the conversation around inclusion and equity. Because even though Women in Clean Tech, we've been a diverse network, right? We understood that when we started our scholarship program, that there was a barrier around equity, and then there was a barrier around inclusion. And this is one of the things that I get extremely passionate about, listening to people like Joanna and Melinda and Shelley and Eden talk about the mindset that is out there and the leadership that's out there to give us a beacon of hope. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for this conversation. And it was such a powerful conversation. And it's just an honor to continue to have this type of dialogue. And I just really hope that we can continue to have that ripple effect. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I feel like that was a drop the mic moment. Does anyone want to follow that with a question?
It's always hard to follow Sarah. She just
Right.
she got a way about her.
All right. Well, I don't see anything in the chat. I'll check I had my helpers putting things in a doc and stuff like that. So it doesn't look like that there are any more questions. So let's thank our speakers for our time. Thank you so much. Give them an emoji, round of applause for providing us great insights and inspiration and all the takeaways. And we'll share some of the resources that we were discussing and that some of the speakers provided as well too in chat. And so now I'm going to hand it back over to Lael.
All right. Thank you so much, Shelley. And I had the exact same reaction when Sarah got on. I was like, well, that's it. I mean, nobody can follow Sarah.
Like, they want someone to do a Q&A or not?
Yeah, she said everything. We're good. So thank you to Sarah for jumping on there. And also thank you, Shelley, so much, and Joanna and Melinda and Eden for such an inspiring conversation. And I saw the activity in the chat. I mean, this really hit home for a lot of people on the call. So thank you all. So if you enjoyed this event, I'm going to get back into my WCS mode. Stay tuned for upcoming events that we have prepared for you. So on May 17th, I mentioned at the beginning of this call that we have PDW, Professional Development Workshop. So we have our PDW #2, Identify and Leveraging Transferable Skills, with Pam Samarco, and she's actually on the call if you may have seen her in the chat. And then we have on May 18th, a San Francisco chapter meeting. On May 24th, we have an eCircle meeting, and then June 7th, we have the pitch competition, which is really popular. We will be dropping in the chat the link to register for those events. So our volunteers will drop that in the chat. And in case you are not yet a WCS member, I do encourage you to sign up. You can sign the QR code to do so, which is right there, and you'll get reimbursed for today's event. And members get exclusive access to WCS Connect, which is our Slack channel for networking and collaboration. So in addition to the webinars and the in-person events and all of that, you also can connect and network with us on our Slack channel. So feel free to reach out to me or any other WCS members on the call. So that was Joanna, Pam, Sarah. If any of other board members are on the call, I apologize I didn't call you out, but do feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about the membership. And then finally, if your company is interested in becoming a corporate member, here's some information, and I believe one of our volunteers will drop some information in the chat as well. But do take advantage of the opportunity to elevate your corporate brand and empower your team with WCS corporate membership. Learn and network with industry professionals from around the world. Join us today and take your organization to new heights. And with organizational memberships, you also get individual memberships for some of your staff. And it depends on what size membership you get, but you do get some that you can share with your employees as well. Finally, truly finally, do not forget to visit our merch store. So if you want to get something from our merch store, you can use the code WCS15OFF for 15% off. And it's there on the screen. We have some pretty cool stuff in the merch store. Thank you so much again to our speakers. We appreciate your time and sharing your expertise. Thank you to Shelley for moderating this discussion. And I also want to give a big thank you to our volunteers. We could not, and I really mean we could not, have these events without the volunteers behind it. So they are just our heroes amongst everyone. So thank you so much to all of them. And a reminder, if you're not following us on social media, here are our handles. Thank you so much. That's all that I have, and I hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.